All right, thank you everybody for being patient. I guess the other folks will join in as we go. So we'll go ahead and get this thing kicked off. So thank you for joining us. My name is Jim Coppinger with Zentech Consultants, and today we're going to be talking about AEC in the cloud, the survival necessity. All right, and I want to thank you guys because it means a lot to me that you're here, because it tells me that if you've taken the time to look at the title of this presentation, that you guys are actively thinking about the cloud and realizing that maybe there is something to this title of survival necessity when we're dealing with the cloud in the AEC world. So let's go ahead and move on with the presentation. So for those of you who haven't worked with us before, we are Zentech Consultants. We're a certified Microsoft Cloud Solutions provider. We specialize in working with small businesses, particularly in the AEC market. That's our background and our wheelhouse. To help you guys with everything that you need, all the way from your operating systems up through advanced Azure, disaster recovery, and everything in between. So when it comes to cloud-based services and Microsoft technology, right, we hope you guys will keep Zentech in mind for all of your needs, and we hope that you guys reach out to us with any questions that you might have. So, all right, let's go ahead and get going. So, why does all of this matter to the AEC market, right? So we can start by saying that technology in AEC is changing. It's changing quickly. Right? Processes and desktop software, they're fading in the face of the team-based collaborative function of the cloud. And one of the things that I do want to point out and talk a little bit about with you guys today is this bottom paragraph that you see up here on the screen, which is that software developers, particularly Microsoft, they are abandoning this concept of desktop software that we have traditionally had. Download the software or get the DVD and install it on a local machine. That's all going away. As a matter of fact, by the end of 2019, Microsoft has already announced that it plans to eliminate all of its desktop software. Everything is going to be moving towards this concept of cloud-based suites like Office 365. Okay, so that's a real important takeaway from this presentation today. So why does that matter to you? Why is that so important? Well, I'm going to throw out some numbers for you guys to consider today. Right? So the first thing to keep in mind is you realize that an AEC firm spends every single year, on average, $16,000 per server that you have. That's the actual hard costs of implementing it, backing it up, adding software, updating software, etc. when you're doing an on-premise hosting. $16,000 per server per year. You think about how many servers you guys have in your office and do that math. Other numbers to throw in there and add with that, estimates say that for every user you have in your company, you're spending an additional $2,000 per year on each of those servers. Right? That's for setting them up, security, processing, file manipulation, etc. Stuff that your IT folks have to deal with. Okay? Those add up really quickly. There's just some big costs when you're dealing with all of this in-house. Right? And the idea is that moving away and going to a cloud-based structure, you start to eliminate those costs. Right? Other things that I want you guys to be aware of, kind of tying into this end of life of the concept of desktop software. Latest market research that's just released this year shows that 54% of all the AEC firms out there, that means half the people on this call right now, right, are still using Windows 7 based systems. Right? They hit end of life at the end of next year. Right? They'll no longer be supported. There'll be nothing you can do with those. And I guarantee you that they don't have the levels of security that you guys need. This is why we hit into things like the WannaCry and the ransomware viruses that have been so prevalent this year. Most of the people who got hit with those were these folks who are still running that Windows 7 system. So the thing to consider there is that you're going to have to make that upgrade and the jump to the cloud in the next 2 years anyway. So my suggestion for you guys, and it's a takeaway I hope you guys will all think about from this presentation, is that what you really want to start considering is it's probably a lot simpler and much more cost effective for you to roll that out slowly over the next 2 years, right, in smaller chunks, rather than have to take that massive hit of dumping every single system, reinstalling every software, setting up all new servers and everything to work with all these new systems that you're going to need when you get to that cloud, kind of that death date for your desktop software. So something for you guys to really think about. So let's get into actually working with the cloud and why it's important to deal with the cloud. Okay, so the reality of the modern AEC firm, right? Things have changed, particularly over the last 8 years. Things have changed very quickly, very dramatically in the AEC market. Right? So right up here you see 50% more time spent in collaboration activities. Right? That means half the people in the AEC community are doing more collaboration, online, real-time collaboration, than they did just a few years ago. Okay? And out of interviews, 43% of AEC firm owners say that improving their productivity is their top priority. And that ties in with this concept of collaboration. You need to work in teams, and those teams need to be agile, and they need to be able to respond really quickly to new information and changing data. Right? This is no longer, you know, the 1980s or 90s where we work in our individual silos and the architect does his design and it gets handed off to the engineer. This is a collaborative, iterative world where everything we do has to be handled in collaboration with either other companies or, at the very least, other people outside of our immediate office within our own company. Right? Which brings us to the next thing that's true about modern AEC firms. 37% of the entire AEC workforce is mobile. That means they no longer work in the office. 37% today. Right? By 2020, they're expecting between 45 and 50% of the entire AEC industry to be mobile, meaning they're either working from home or they're on the road or they're running from site to site. Right? And one of the things that the AEC firm needs to address is this ability to give your people secure, full-time access to your files, regardless of what device they're working from. Okay? And this is really the kind of stuff we have to address when we're talking about this concept of AEC in the cloud. You have to look at it and you have to know that whether your staff is accessing via a laptop, a desktop, a smartphone, a tablet, you've got to have the ability to give them that access wherever they are in the world in real time. Okay? So that's something we're going to talk about. Right? And the other area that's very important when you're dealing with any type of cloud-based or collaborative structure, right, is you need to understand that 43%, right, almost half of the cyber attacks that are out there on the web or out in the world through emails, wherever, they're directly targeted at small businesses. They're not meant to hit Microsoft and Cisco and those giant partners because those guys are too secure. They're targeted at you, the small and medium-sized architectural firm or engineering firm. Right? You're the guys they're going to hit because you can't afford to have dedicated full-time staff to do nothing but sit there all day and provide security updates and patches and develop new ways of protecting yourself. They know that. That's why you're their target. Okay? And here's a real important number to take away. 60% of businesses that get hit with a cyber attack are out of business within 1 year of the attack. That's a frightening statistic. Okay? You can't be safe enough from the current cybersecurity war that's going on out there. Okay? So all the things we want you to take away and think about today in terms of why the cloud is so important. Right? So let's kind of look at what's going on in the AEC world, and most importantly, what have we learned over the last 8 years since the housing market crash, and why that's important to moving yourself towards the cloud. All right, so let's start with the first thing. The very first thing that we had to learn as an industry, right, when the market crashed, was flexibility. Right? So we all know the truth, right? It's the old adage, we've all heard it a million times, right? So it's a concept of first out, first in. Right? When things go bad in the construction industry, right, the AEC markets, we're always the first ones out of work and we're always the first ones back to work. Right? When it comes to hard times, we're the ones who feel it first. Right? The truth of the matter is that AEC firms, regardless whether you're a design firm or construction firm, we are constantly in flux. We're growing and shrinking and merging and blending depending on what the market is doing. Right? And we learned to do that better than we ever have over the last 8 years. We had to, just to survive. Okay? And the benefit of moving to a cloud-based system is that almost all cloud-based systems, particularly the Microsoft ones, are based on a per user licensing structure that you can add to and subtract on the fly. You're not spending tens of thousands of dollars to buy perpetual licenses that you're going to keep forever, right? And then when times go bad and you have to cut staff back to half of what you currently have, you're stuck with software that you're not getting any benefit from. Instead, it's easy on a month-by-month basis to simply call Zentech and say, listen, Jim, times are tight. We laid off 20 people. I need to reduce 20 of my licenses. I just turned them off, and you stop paying for them. On the opposite hand, things are going good. Housing market's booming. We're building. We added 50 new people. Jim, give me 50 licenses. I need them by tomorrow. I flip a switch. You've got 50 more licenses. You're ready to go. That's the level of flexibility that cloud-based computing can bring to your AEC firm, right? So very important aspect. The other things that we learned, right? Another thing we learned is that we have learned about collaboration. Again, design build firms, multidiscipline design firms, they're now the norm, right? I'm an old guy. I've been around for 50 years, and I tell you that when I first came out, architectural firms did architecture, and engineering firms did engineering. Construction guys, GCs, they built, and that was it. There was a very, distinct separation between those three industries. And over these last 8 years, that's going away. In order for us to survive in the market we're just moving out of now, we learned to blend. Architects and engineers merged, right? More and more design build firms are coming to the fore. That's becoming the common practice, right? The iterative design process, for building. That's becoming more common. BIM has had a long-term impact. The concept of long-term facility management is driving, real-time collaboration and data sharing, right? And blended with this idea of instant 24-hour communication, you're eliminating that old concept of that conflict-based process between the architect and the GC. Oh, he didn't put it on the drawing, so it's not my responsibility. And owners don't want to get involved in that because they want this collaborative process where there's no fighting. I will actually tell you guys, I had an odd conversation just yesterday with my nephew, who actually went to work for a design build firm. Right? He's one of their site supervisors. And it's the first firm he's ever worked for where they literally will refuse to do any construction that has not been done by their design staff. They only build their own designs. That's a changing world. That's nothing like what I grew up in, right? And the idea that these partners that you're working with, whether they're part of your own company or if they're just a partner company across the world, they're distributed, right? And the only way that you can effectively share that data without immense security concerns and immense drain on your internal systems is by having a centrally located hosted cloud system where you can give secure real-time access to all of your design information without any problems. All right, so collaboration was another way we learned to adapt and survive during the lousy market we're just coming out of now. All right, the other thing that we really learned the hard way during the last 8 years is cost control. Right, cost control. Tools like Microsoft 365, right, that integrate your operating systems and all your file storage and programs and security all into one single bundle, right? As opposed to spending tens of thousands of dollars every year upgrading servers and security systems, and you have some people on one version of Windows and others on a different version of Windows. We've learned that the best way that we can really protect our information and keep our overhead down is to move to this cloud-based structure where everybody is on a single platform and we can trust Microsoft and the other cloud solution providers as well, but we're a Microsoft house, so I'm going to push Microsoft today, that they're going to be the ones responsible to make sure that your data is always secure. And the beauty of all of this is that it's dramatically less cost than anything you can do in-house, and it's just ridiculously more effective in keeping your data moving and secure for far less money. All right? So again, it's about cost control, keeping prices down while getting us the type of workflow that we really need. Okay? So what are the key factors when it comes to design firms and AEC and being successful in implementing the cloud, right? Well, the key things that we really need are three key things that we need to make sure we address in any kind of a cloud solution. The first one is accessibility, okay? You as an AEC business, you can offer more flexible working ability and perks to your employees, right? So they can actually start to enjoy that work-life balance that they're looking for. And that's really a very big thing in the millennial generation and the new guys, those brilliant young kids who you're hiring, right out of college, or who only have a few years of experience under their belt. These are folks, men and women, who have grown up in the computer age. They're digitally connected from the time they're 8 years old. They're used to that freestyling, always connected, do what I want, where I want, when I want. Right? They don't have to work, and they don't want to work that 9 to 5 in the office sitting in front of a monitor. That's where you're going to lose your best people. Right? And here's something for you to consider when it comes in terms of that and accessibility. Right? Another statistic I'm going to throw at you. Study came out this year that says that 42% of workers are willing to take up to a 10% pay cut just to allow them to telecommute. So they don't have to drive to the office every day and work in the office. They'll take a 10% pay cut, right? Which is not a bad thing to think about, right? You reduce overhead, and you get that ability to make sure that they're in that work-life balance that they're looking for. So it'll help you with retention, and it will also help you to be able to share the data in real time and give people that ability to work from wherever they need to work. Definite pluses there. Right? Another key is the concept of document control. Right? And when I say document control, I'm not referring to those large-scale, expensive document management systems. What I'm talking about is the fact that for years we had to, the only way that we had to share data was we'd send files back and forth as email attachments. Right? That meant one user at a time would work on it. Then your employee would work on it, and then he sent it to a client would work on it, and he'd send it back, and it would go back 3 or 4 times, right? And you're eating up time, you're eating up your network bandwidth, you're eating up storage, and it's not secure. I can't tell you how much money companies lose when they're working on out-of-date documents, not realizing that someone else has modified it somewhere else or in another company. Okay, so the other thing to remember is that 73% of workers in the AEC community collaborate with people in different time zones and regions every week. That's just the way it is in this day and age. We need to be able to share our files, share our designs, share everything that we do with people who are halfway across the world. Right? And the easiest and most secure way to do that, instead of trying to email these files constantly back and forth, is to store them in a central cloud-based location where we can give access to the file to everybody who needs to get to it. And the benefit of that is when you're working with a system like the Microsoft 365 structure, not only can you have multiple people get to those files, we can actively have those people working on the file at the same time, watching each other's changes and modifications and discussing it in real time, making use of tools like OneDrive and SharePoint and Skype. Right? So it gives us that online document control and collaboration so we can share everywhere in the world. And that's huge. That's a massive key to your cloud success. Right? And the last one, right, which is always the big thing, particularly for owners and IT folks, right, is security. For many, many years, we met with a lot of resistance when discussing with people about moving towards the cloud. And the first concern they would always raise is, well, I don't want my proprietary data out in the cloud where anybody can get to it, and I have no control over it. Well, the reality of it is your data is at much more risk inside your office than it is out on the cloud. And the reason for that, right, is that, number one, you can't afford the levels of security that someone like Microsoft can. Right? When you use a Microsoft cloud service, not only do you have your data stored in the cloud for easy accessibility, it's being backed up to 4 or more regional locations. So in case of something like Hurricane Harvey, and God bless all the folks who were there and stuck in the flood, We hope things are good for them, and I hope that nobody on this call has had any negative impact from that. But when things like that happen, when natural disasters occur, you don't have to worry about what happened when your office flooded. What happens when you lose power for 4 weeks? How do you keep and maintain your profitability that way? None of those are concerns for you because your data exists in California and in Minnesota and in New Jersey and down in Texas. All the same stuff. You'll never go down. Okay? Something that most of us can't do. Another real big security concern in this modern collaborative area is the idea of losing your devices. How many of us have lost laptops, forgotten our phone on the subway, right? Dropped the cell phone in the restaurant we went out to with our wives. Company data is on those phones, right? If you're handling this yourself in-house, that data now belongs to whoever took that device. Whereas with cloud-based structures, we can actively just reach out with a single click of a button and delete company data from any device that you've connected through the Microsoft systems. That's a huge security benefit, okay? And remember, all these things we're talking about come at far less cost than what you're doing right now, and they're far more secure, okay? So the question then becomes, and I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because we're getting near the end of the time here, is, what cloud systems should my firm be using? Well, we're a Microsoft house, so we absolutely recommend the Microsoft 365 Business Platform, right? Because it is really designed for most modern AEC firms. And the truth of the matter is, for most of you, it means you're going to pay around $20 a month per user. That's nothing. That's way less than you're paying now. All right, so let's talk real quickly about what does Microsoft 365 Business do for you? It's going to address all of these items that we were talking about earlier as far as the cloud, right? It's going to let you collaborate, achieve more together. You're going to be able to access your files from anywhere in the world. You'll have always-on security. It's simplified for business, right? So how do you collaborate? Well, it's great because you can take all your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all your standard Office products, and you can work on files jointly, not just with people within your own office, but people across the country, across the world, in different companies, if you give them the rights to do so. Right? And there are a lot of tools like Cortana and connecting with customers. Right? A lot of collaborative tools that are available in the cloud that we just do not have time to cover all of them here today. But if you think about things like Skype and Team and Flow, where you can structure and see every step along the way throughout a design process, exactly who's done what, when, where, why, and how, and it doesn't cost you any more than $20 a month. All of those tools are part of that $20 a month package. Okay? You have connectivity anywhere that it matters. Doesn't matter what, like I said, with tablets or smartphones or desktops or laptops, right? No problem. And you don't even have to worry about the lack of internet connection. Because Microsoft does offline synchronization, right? Your files are synchronized before you leave the office. You don't have to copy files and say, oh, I need to work on this while I'm out, right? All your files are in the cloud and they're updated and synchronized to your local machine at the same time. So if you go out into the field and you don't have Wi-Fi connection, doesn't matter. You've already got all the design drawings, all of the photos, everything that you need out in the field. You make your changes, you make your edits and modifications. Then the next time you come in and you connect to a Wi-Fi location, it will update the cloud with all of your modifications and edits. Hugely beneficial. Okay? Always on security, right? This comes back to what we said before. When you are using a cloud-based system, you always have the latest updates without you ever having to do anything or bring in IT consultants or have full-time IT staff doing nothing but patching your systems. Everything is updated on the cloud end by professionals whose job is to do nothing but make sure your data is secure 24/7, 365. Okay? It's simplified for business. This is one of the other things that's really, really nice. They've made it as a single console to control all of your cloud interfaces. Really, you don't even need an IT professional. Now, I'm not going to say get rid of your IT guys. You need them. They're important and they're vital to have around. But this simplistic interface where it's all one portal where they can control all your security, all your programs, all your platforms, it takes away all of that back-end support patch, dealing with 15 different types of software and how do I make it work, into this one single streamlined portal so that your IT professionals can spend their time making sure that your system is doing what you need it to do for your business, instead of trying to figure out 15 different types of software and what did that software developer want me to do. Okay? It lets them focus on you instead of things that aren't you and aren't making you money. Right? So that kind of sums it up, and I want to thank you guys for spending the time with us today. Hopefully you guys kind of get a better grasp of why it's so important to move towards that cloud structure in the AEC community. My contact information is up here on the screen, and if you guys have any thoughts, questions, or concerns, or if there's anything at all that Zentech can do to help you in your move towards the cloud, please feel free to reach out to me at any time, and I really want to thank you guys for joining us today, and I hope that you'll have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks.